Offenberg, the Jewish Program Manager here at the Jewish Community Center. I want to welcome all of you on this very, very cold November night here to the Jewish Community Center. Hopefully we'll be able to warm you up inside the building. Refreshments for you back there as well. I want to just start off by wishing Stephen Needleman, who takes classes here often, a mazel tov on the birth of a beautiful granddaughter in New York. Best weeks of mazel tov, and many more simchas to you and the family. I'm usually introducing other speakers as the education director here. I have the opportunity of introducing many speakers, usually not introducing myself. But in any case, that's what I'll do this evening, and I'll tell you about tonight's program and how it's going to work. I'm Yossi Offenberg, Jewish Program Manager. I actually come from Canada. I've been here about 7 years, and when I first started teaching, that was my field is teaching both children and adults. That's my background, and teaching Jewish philosophy, Jewish theology. Tonight's program, which is entitled Talking Tuesdays, really started about 5 years ago. And we did this lecture actually some 5 years ago when we started our series. And it was designed to let people interact, people to discuss, people to learn in somewhat of a social setting. In other words, they would learn something, hear something new, but at the same time have a chance to discuss things with each other and sort of learn something that was substantive and yet have some sort of interaction with each other. So that was the design of the program. And every Tuesday, for years now, we've had different topics, different speakers, pretty much you name it, we've had it here. So tonight we're going to do the 5 levels of pleasure, the Jewish version of what the 5 levels of pleasure are. So I welcome you with your questions as well. If I can't answer them right during the lecture, definitely after the lecture, it'd be my pleasure. So we're going to start with the 5 levels of pleasure. And before we go ahead and announce what the Jewish levels of pleasure are, what I'd like to do is give you some time, maybe about 3 minutes, to either speak to another person or amongst, on your own, amongst yourself. Think about how you would categorize pleasure. What you think 5 levels of pleasure would be. Not necessarily what the Jewish version is of the 5 levels of pleasure, but if somebody were to ask you, how would you categorize it in your life? I mean, obviously you pursue pleasure. What are the 5 levels in terms of importance? How do you categorize them? What would they be? And then after those few minutes, we'll take it up, see on the board, and we'll compare that, your own ideas, to what the Jewish idea is. Okay? So take about 3 minutes. Think about, put it on a piece of paper, what you think the Jewish perspective, what your perspective would be on the 5 levels of pleasure, how you categorize them, speak amongst yourselves, and we'll come back. Any questions? Okay, go.
Sculpture, music.
Well, that's a level of enjoyment. Yeah, pleasure of obtaining pleasure.
When it comes to food, it's like 3 times a day. As a comparison.
Okay, why don't we take it up as we start some discussion. You see, it's not so easy in terms of categorizing and coming up with it, because to some degree it's subjective, experiential. In any case, let's see what some of you have to say. So go ahead. Put up your hand if you have an answer for 5th class, the lowest level of pleasure. 5th class. What did you come up with 5th class of pleasure? Did you prioritize or categorize them? No, they're just there as levels, but there's no priority. They're all game, but you're not going to fight one for the other. Any priority? Yeah, Jason. Physical? If you haven't, okay. If you haven't prioritized, that's fine. Just give me then some pursuits of pleasure that you would see. Go ahead. What did you come up with? I heard discussion about art. Go ahead.
We are helping others.
Helping others.
That brings a sense of personal satisfaction. Learning new things. Tranquility.
Tranquility, helping others, and a whole bunch of others.
Eating.
Which one?
Eating.
Eating. Especially in one of the many fine restaurants San Francisco has to offer. Eating. Another level of pleasure. Yes? Close interpersonal. Personal relationships. Okay. Yeah? Uh-huh.
Also, sharing or giving.
Sharing or giving. Okay. Sharing, giving, good. Level of pleasure.
Creativity.
Creativity. Okay.
Good deeds.
Good deeds. Boy, such a room of wonderful people with all these wonderful thoughts. Any others? Yeah?
Spiritual relationship.
Spiritual relationship. Okay, so there's any other burning ones that we haven't put on the board? So obviously there's a whole slew of possible levels of pleasure, pursuits that are well worth, and I mean each and every one on their own is obviously very valuable. It's a whole world of potential here. So this is very good. Judaism categorizes them in terms of where we should be spending most of our time and where we're going to get most of the reward. So think about it on your own list in terms of categorizing, because that's very important in terms of priority. So today's class is obviously 5 levels of pleasure. What is the one thing we want most for our children? I don't know if all of you have kids, some of you have kids. If you have kids, or if you don't and you were to have, think about it. What's the one thing you'd want your child to be more than anything else? What do you want your child to be?
Happy.
Happy, right? You want your kids to be happy. You want your child to be happy. That's right. You want their happiness. And as a parent, you know when your kids are happy, you're happy. And when your kids are miserable, you're miserable. And it's a smart kid who knows how to manipulate their parents, right? I mean, I know how to get mom and dad to do what I want. I just pretend I'm unhappy, and they'll do anything because they want me to be happy. And it takes a very strong parent to say no. So, right, that's what you want. You want your kids to be happy. And in Judaism, we say the same thing. In fact, the relationship between parent and child is a paradigm between the relationship between God to us. In other words, just like we have children, God is our parent, and we are children to God. And just like you want your kids to be happy, in the same way Judaism says God wants us to be happy. We are created here. The reason we're here is for the express purpose of being happy, of getting pleasure out of life, making the most. That's why we're here, is to be pleasure, to have pleasure. What kind of pleasures would you want your kids to enjoy? What kind of things would make them happy? Take a 7-year-old. As a parent, what would you want your 7-year-old to enjoy? Think about it. What do you want your 7-year-old to enjoy? Learning, education, school. How about things that are a little more fun? Friends, creativity. But even just basic things. I mean, a vacation, toys. I mean, you want them to enjoy it and get the most out of these things as well. They're 7 years old. You want them to have friends, of course. Summer camp, I mean, that's a big thing. Vacations, sports, tennis. I mean, tennis is a great thing. You want your kid to enjoy tennis. But the problem is, if they're no longer 7, but they're 27, and all they're doing day and night is tennis, you get really worried. And if they're 37 and all they're doing is tennis, you scream for help. Why? Because as a parent, as an adult, you've had a lot more experiences in life than your child. And you know there's a lot more out there. I mean, if 27, 37, they don't want to finish college, they don't want to get a job, they don't want to get married, have a family, have kids of their own, you're going to be upset, you're going to be worried, because you've experienced everything else. And you want them to experience what you've experienced, to see that there's pleasures in relationships, there's pleasures in going to work and having a job. There's all these pleasures out there. And that's exactly what Judaism teaches us through the Torah. The Torah and Judaism, the Bible. In that Bible, you basically have this manual on how to enjoy life, how to get the pleasures out of life. What does the word Torah literally mean in Judaism? Literally, if you were to translate the word Torah into English, what's the word mean? Teachings. A lot of people say laws, Bible. What does the word Torah mean? Our foundation, our main principle, the Torah literally means, if you translate it, instructions. If you go to Israel, you want to drive, you take Torah Tanehigah, instructions for driving. We call the Torah, Torah Chaim. In other words, instructions for living, Chai, for life. And just like you buy a new VCR or a new DVD player, I mean, it's a new century, a DVD player, you want your instruction manual to help you get the most out of your DVD player. The Torah, this instruction manual, is there to give you, to help you get the most out of life, the most out of the pleasure that's available to us. So that's what we're going to look at. What do we mean by the 5 levels of pleasure in Judaism? It's almost like flying. Let's say you wanted to fly from San Francisco to Toronto. Toronto's a great place to be, especially this time of year. You want to fly to the East Coast and enjoy Canada. You call up Air Canada. Book me a ticket on Air Canada. I want to fly there. What's one of the first things the travel agent's going to want to know about how you're going to spend your 5 hours in the air? Which class? Which class do you want to travel? What's the best way to travel? First class. First class. What's the second best way to travel? Business class. Air Canada calls it executive or ambassador. Notice you said everything but. What's the one thing you didn't say? You didn't say second class. Why is that? Because nobody wants to admit that they're flying any way but first class. No marketing department's going to stand for anybody admitting that they're going to fly second class. So they create a euphemism. They call it business or executive or ambassador, because nobody's going to admit they're flying anywhere but first class. What's the third best way to travel? Economy, hospitality, coach, anything but third class. If there were a fourth best way to travel, what would it be? If there were a Greyhound, perhaps nowadays. If there were a fourth best way to travel, it would probably be, unfortunately, with the animals in the luggage compartment. They put you down there with the poor animals, and you fly that way. And if there were a fifth best way to travel, even worse, that's fourth class. They'd probably give you a rope, put you onto the tail, and they would tell you to hang on. And I say it not so much as a joke, but I say it, unfortunately, so much as a reality. Because there are a lot of people who travel in life, fifth class. That is, they're hanging on. Barely hanging on. And if things get too tough, they let go. And hopefully we'll be able to show it tonight that it's a shame they're traveling fifth class, because life has so much to offer. There are so many genuine opportunities to explore one's potential, to really contribute, and to enjoy what life has to offer, that we should be traveling first class, not fifth class, not just barely hanging on and letting go when things get tough. So that's what we're going to show tonight. What's fifth class pleasure? Fifth class pleasure? You tell me, what's fifth class pleasure? Fifth class? The Torah, this instruction manual, Judaism says fifth class pleasure is physical and material pleasure. Skiing in the Alps, a yacht, a beautiful home, designer clothing, orchestra, nice music, a sunset. Physical, material pleasures is known to be fifth class pleasure. There's thousands upon thousands of different categories in fifth class pleasure. I mean, I can't possibly put them all down. So the rabbis in their wisdom help us out. Fifth class pleasure is any pleasure you can experience with any of your 5 senses. That is, you can smell it, a beautiful desert rose, fragrance. You can see it, a sunset or a beautiful painting. You can hear it, nice piece of music, birds chirping. You can taste it, food. And what's the final one? Touch, right? Tactile sense. Flannel, silk, something that feels good. So the five senses, the five ways we relate to the world is really the fifth class of pleasure. And get it. The Torah says, in fact, we should enjoy everything that the fifth class has to offer. In fact, in the Talmud, one of the Jewish writings in the Talmud, we're told that if there's any fruit, in other words, something that we don't partake of in the fifth world, in the fifth level of pleasure, that we're held accountable in the next world. In heaven, we're held accountable. God says to us, why in the world didn't you enjoy that avocado, or whatever fruit, or whatever pleasure it was that was offered to you? Why didn't you enjoy it? You're actually held accountable for something you didn't enjoy. Remember, Judaism was never an ascetic religion. A lot of people confuse Judaism with Catholicism, where the highest level of being is one of celibacy, where you abstain. Judaism was never such a religion that said abstinence from sex or intimacy. We never believed in that. We always believed in making the most of each level of pleasure and enjoying it. So get out there and make the most of it. The only problem is a lot of people make fifth-class pleasure their whole lives. In other words, they spend all their time chasing fifth-class pleasure, materialism and physical goods, to the exclusion of other things. And oftentimes, you're supposed to enjoy things in moderation, but they enjoy it in excess. And you start doing things in excess, you miss the point of what it's supposed to be. So get out there and enjoy it, but don't make it your purpose in life. It's almost as if I were to invite you over to my house for dinner, and you were to come in and I had this meal prepared for you and you're ready to eat, and you take part and you just gorge yourself on the appetizer. And you're stuffed, and you get up and you're ready to go home. And I say, hey, wait a minute. That was just the appetizer. The best is yet to come. There's so much more waiting for you. It's the same way with fifth class pleasure. A lot of people have made fifth class their meal. And that's all it is, and then they leave. There's so much more. Fifth class is just an appetizer. So enjoy it, but don't make it everything. Okay, so we're going to get into the other levels of pleasure. Any questions so far with fifth class? Okay, yeah. You guys know how to enjoy fifth class. I mean, totally, readily available to everybody. Physical pleasure. Before we get into the next levels of pleasure, there's three prerequisites. Three prerequisites that the Torah, that Judaism gives us that we need to know. The first prerequisite, very simple. Has any of you ever taken a course in wine tasting? Wine tasting. If you were to take a course in wine tasting, what do you think they would teach you about enjoying the wine, experiencing the wine? On a multitude of levels, such as? Before you even get there, just the cork. You actually look at the cork, smell the cork, you pour the wine, right? You look at the bouquet, the color, smell the aroma. I think they call it checking its legs, actually is the terminology. And then just before you experience it, they actually teach you the different parts of your mouth. There are 32 parts of your tongue that actually taste the wine differently. And they teach you how to feel each part of that. So there's a whole world of experiences just in simply tasting wine. I mean, if you're a barbarian like myself, you just want to get drunk, you just keep chugging it down until you're passed out. But for someone who's really wants to be a connoisseur, you take a 6-month, 12-month course. You become an expert in wine. And whenever you taste it, you really enjoy what that wine is there for. So that's wine tasting. The rabbis say life is the same way. Life has so many opportunities for pleasure. I mean, if you can sensitize yourself to all the elements of a beautiful day, think of it. You go outside, and for a minute, you feel the sunshine on your skin. You smell the air, how fresh it is. You notice the birds. Look at the trees. I mean, it gives you a lift. And if you really took advantage of what's available in a gorgeous day, you could spend hours really appreciating it. If not, I mean, it gives you a lift for 30 seconds, a minute, and then you're back in your car thinking about all the problems that await for you that day. So it really depends on how much sensitivity you're willing to afford in life. And so that's the lesson here in terms of the first prerequisite, is you need to become a connoisseur for pleasure. You need to, as you go through life and you're enjoying each level of pleasure, you need to really make the most and enjoy it just like you did in the wine. Enjoy each level of pleasure, because otherwise, what's the point of the pleasure? Just to drink, just to have another pleasure? If you're not going to enjoy it the most, then don't bother. Okay, so that's the first one. The first one, and I'm going to give away how bad a speller I am, but it's to become a, am I getting it right? No, it isn't. I'm a Canadian, so if I spell wrong, I can always blame it on my Canadian heritage, because we spell differently in Canada. Anyways, the first prerequisite is becoming a connoisseur. What's the second prerequisite? The second prerequisite is the following. Every pleasure in life has a price attached to it. What's the price for pleasure? The price for pleasure is effort. I mean, the greater the pleasure, the greater the effort. You want a superficial pleasure? It takes a little effort. You want a deeper pleasure? It takes more effort. You want a very, very deep pleasure? It takes a huge amount of effort. The price for pleasure is effort. And the rabbis come along and say, to really enjoy the pleasure, to enjoy what's available, you need to focus on the pleasure and not the effort. Focus on the pleasure, but not the effort that's involved. Because if you focus on the pleasure, you won't really notice the effort. But if you focus on the effort, you're really not going to notice the pleasure when it comes by. Take a group of teenagers. Sunday morning, they're playing basketball on a court. Next to you, it's in a park. You go and you watch them play. And you've been watching them for about half an hour. They are soaking wet. I mean, they're doing layups and they're playing hoops. They're doing really well. And you stop the game for a minute and you say, hey, I want to try and experiment with you. Keep playing the way you've been playing basketball. Except this time, give me your ball. And keep playing the same way. Okay, we'll try it. So you get their ball and they start running, doing layups and loops and the whole thing on the basketball court. How long do you think they can do this without the ball? 5 minutes? 10 minutes pass. After 15 minutes, I mean, they're running around pretending there's a ball and it's boring beyond belief. They say, hey, mister, what's the point of this crazy experiment? Give us back our ball. You give them the ball back and they're off playing for another 2 hours as if nothing had ever happened with all this energy. That's where you get the saying in life. Keep your eye on the ball. As long as they had the ball, they were focused on the pleasure. They weren't really concerned about the effort, about running around, how hot it was getting, how hard it was. But when the ball was taken away, when the pleasure was taken away, and all they had left was the effort, they couldn't do it for very long. So it's the same way with life and with us. You have to keep your eye on the ball and you have to focus on the pleasure. In every category, you can choose to focus on the effort or you can choose to focus on the pleasure. If you choose in the morning, when you wake up, let's say, and you've got the day ahead of you, if you choose to focus on, you've got to shower, make breakfast, drive through crazy traffic to get to work. You finally get to work, there are a million voicemails and emails waiting for you, and your boss needs something, and your deadline is past due, and till then, at the end of the night, you've got to drive back home through traffic again, and then you've got to either buy dinner or make dinner, and you can't wait to get back into bed. You're not going to want to leave bed. I mean, you're just going to put the covers on and stay another hour in bed. Because what are you doing? You're focusing on all the efforts. If, on the other hand, you focus on what you're going to do today, you're going to be able to use your potential to actually make a difference. You're going to contribute in such a way with so much enthusiasm and energy that people are going to be motivated by you, that this day is actually going to be a day that's special. Nothing can stop you, and you're going to want to run out of bed really quickly. So it depends on you. Wherever you focus, if you focus on the effort, you'll feel defeated and not want to achieve. If you focus on the pleasure, nothing can get in your way from being successful. That's why the second prerequisite is learn to focus on the pleasure, not the effort. Okay? So that's is focus on the pleasure. Third prerequisite. What's the third prerequisite? prerequisite. Wake up one morning, hear a knock on your door, you open your door, and right on your stair step is what? A bag. On the days before anthrax, you're willing to open your bag, and you look inside, and sure enough, $10,000 in unmarked bills. You're lucky that you are so excited. So you hurry, you take the money, it's a Thanksgiving Day sale, what are you going to do with your money? You go to Macy's, I mean, they've got a great sale, you rush into Macy's, and you wanted watches. You've had your ideas on watches, and you buy 10 watches, you spend $5,000, you've got the Movado, the Omega, the Patek Philippe, all the fancy watches, and you still have $5,000 left. You leave Macy's, and on your way out, police are waiting for you, and they handcuff you. They take you to jail. Why? Counterfeit money. Counterfeit money. And we're told in Judaism, just like there's counterfeit money, there's, guess what? Counterfeit pleasures. There's a lot of counterfeit pleasures out there. And a lot of times we invest ourselves in counterfeit pleasures thinking that this is really going to bring us joy and happiness, when ultimately it leads us down on a road that we'd rather not be down on. There's a lot of counterfeit pleasures out there. And we have to be careful that we're putting our energy in real pleasures, not counterfeit. If a guy came up to you and said, he's a businessman, I've got a great idea for a .com company, right? Original idea for a .com company. It's easily going to gross $1 million over the next year. I mean, it's proven it's going to gross $1 million. The only thing I need from you is a small $10,000 investment. What are you going to do? Say, where do I sign the check? Who do I make it out to? Of course not. What you're going to do is, who are you? I mean, show me your business plan. What have you done in the past? Why do you think it's going to work? You're going to spend weeks, if not months, checking this guy out, checking his story out, checking his plan out before you're willing to plunk down $10,000 and lose it on this idea. It's the same way with pleasure. So many pleasures come around to us, and they look so sexy, so enticing. And yet, a lot of times we invest before checking it out. And I'll tell you, our time is actually more valuable than money, because our time is so precious. To invest in something with our time that ultimately really isn't so important, that's a waste and that's a tragedy. So we should be very careful what we're investing our time in, and making sure it's the real pleasure and not a counterfeit. There's one counterfeit pleasure. There's one counterfeit pleasure that is more prevalent in this society than in any other society in the world, especially in Western society. It shows how decadent we are, actually. What is the number one counterfeit pleasure?
Wealth.
Wealth? Yeah. Huh?
Drugs.
Drugs. The number one counterfeit pleasure, what? It works like this. What is the opposite of pain? Right. What is the opposite of pain? Right. What is the opposite of pain? Right. Ask 9 out of 10 people, what is the opposite of pain? Pleasure. Wrong. If you get nothing else tonight, remember this. That is the most destructive thing you can ever believe. The opposite of pain is not pleasure. The opposite of pleasure is no pleasure. The opposite of pain is comfort. To equate comfort with pleasure is to be decadent. Listen closely. To the Western man, the ultimate pleasure in life, the greatest destination a person can reach, is Hawaii Beach. Picture. You live for Hawaii. You get to Hawaii, you go to the beach, you're laying in this beautiful cot, you're so relaxed, the sun is on you tanning, the ocean beside you, someone attractive is handing you a tall drink, you're so relaxed, the Danielle Steele novel is just falling out of your hand, you're so relaxed, you're almost asleep. I mean, you better wake up and enjoy this pleasure. You're so relaxed, your eyes are closed. In Judaism, that's not life, that's death. Life isn't. You weren't created to live on Hawaii Beach, suntanning the rest of your life. That's comfort. You were created to have pleasure. Pain and pleasure is not the opposite. Pain is the price you pay for pleasure. Get this down. Pain is the price you pay for pleasure. You want to graduate from school, get a degree? It takes a certain amount of pain. You then want to go become a lawyer or a doctor? It takes even more pain. You want to keep that job and succeed? It takes an enormous amount of pain. You want to become a champion Olympic athlete? Do you recognize for every single person you see walking around with a gold medal strapped around their neck, that person has paid an enormous, enormous amount of price in pain and suffering to get that gold medal. Pain is the price you pay for pleasure. You're not going to get pleasure if you avoid pain. Try this experiment. It's kind of funny. Ask Lauren. Ask for your parents. In terms of your parents, what is your parents in their lives? What has been your parents' greatest pleasure in their lives?
I've probably raising 3 successful kids.
Right, you, right, you. Lorna, in your parents' lives, what has been your parents' greatest pain in their lives?
Probably me.
Right, you, exactly. You are not an opposite of yourself. You are not your own opposite. Pain and pleasure are not opposites. Pain is the price you pay for pleasure. Your parents, in wanting to do away with a lot of pain, could have decided not to have 3 wonderful kids. But they would have done away with the pleasure of having a remarkable person grow up and be so successful. So pain is the price you pay for pleasure. You know, one night I did this in another city, and I asked a very, very bright woman, she's sitting in the front, and I asked her, I said, tell me, what is your parents' greatest pleasure in life? And she smiled and she said, me. And then I said, tell me, what is your parents' greatest pain in life? And she smiled, an even bigger smile, and said, my sister. In any case, pain and pleasure are not opposites. Pain is the price you pay for pleasure. So let's review before we get into the levels of pleasure. What are the 3 prerequisites that you need to know? The first is to become a connoisseur. Enjoy it. Learn what it's about. The second prerequisite, focus on the pleasure, not on the effort. Otherwise, you won't want to do it. And thirdly, what's that? Beware of counterfeit pleasures that are out there. The number 1 counterfeit being that pain is the opposite of pleasure. Great. So let's get into the 4th level of pleasure. The 4th level of pleasure is the following. When we do these levels of pleasure, I mean, they're just not drawn out of the blue. I mean, we have reasons, we have criteria. Remember, it comes from God, it comes from the Torah. Our criteria for deciding what one level of pleasure versus another is in fact no exchange rate. No exchange rate. What does that mean? It means no level of 5th class pleasure can buy you a corresponding unit in 4th class. No amount of 4th class can buy you a corresponding unit in 3rd class, so on and so forth. No exchange rate, okay? So when I ask you what is the 4th level of pleasure, you've got to be asking yourself, what is it that in the 5th class of pleasure can't buy me in the 4th class? What am I willing to give up in the 5th class to get in the 4th class? So you tell me now, what is 4th class pleasure? Emotional connection, relationships. Getting there. No amount of 5th class can get you a unit of 4th class. You'd be willing to give it up.
Love.
Donna, say that again.
Love.
The Beatles, right? Didn't they have that song, You Can't Buy Me Love? Right? What's that song? You Can't Buy Me Love. No amount of money is worth love. The rabbis, Judaism says the 4th level of pleasure is love. Let me demonstrate how this is true. Take a guy, we'll call him Mr. Schwartz, right? Mr. Schwartz is doing very well. He's working at a company. Let's call the company Microsoft. The company name Microsoft. So Schwartz, Mr. Schwartz, or Schwartzy as he likes to be called, is doing really well in Microsoft. I mean, he's been working there all year, and he's very close to honing in on his $100,000. I mean, it's a lot of money. He's made a lot of sales, a lot of contracts. He's done very well. In walks his boss, Bill Gates, lack of a better name. Bill Gates says to Schwartzy, Schwartzy, you're doing so well this year. You are almost about to make $100,000. You spent so many hours, so many weekends here in the office. You spent so much time making that money. You've done so well. I'm going to tell you something, Schwartzy. Today's your lucky day. Today, I make you a happy man. I met your wife. She is such a lovely lady. She's so nice, she's so kind, she's so considerate. I met your two adorable kids. They're so cute, they're so sweet, and they're bright. I mean, they're full of potential, they're full of life. I have to tell you something. I think your kids are so great. I'm going to adopt one of your kids. I'm going to adopt your son, your sweet little son. And not for $100,000 that you've been working here, for $100 million. $100 million and some stock options for your son. What do you say, Schwartzy? And don't worry about it. Nothing bad will ever happen to your son. In fact, he'll do a lot better by me than he ever could by you. I mean, he'll have the best care, he'll have a nanny, he'll have the best education, the best clothes, the best vacations. You name it, your son is going to have it the best. Except one thing. You'll never hear from him again, you'll never speak to him again, and you'll never write to him again. Tell me, what does Mr. Schwartz say to Bill Gates?
Can't say it in this room.
No way, hopefully. No way. $100 million, no way. Can't buy my son, forget it. He waits until Bill Gates leaves the office. The second he leaves the office, he calls up his secretary on the phone, tells his secretary, put all my calls on hold. I'm out of here. I'm going on vacation for 2 weeks. Jumps in the car, barrels home, breaks open the door, sees his two kids, and attacks them. I mean, he's loving and kissing them. I mean, he thinks to himself, you idiot, I've missed so much time with my children. They're so precious, and with my wife for $100,000. He's offering me $100 million, and I'm not going to trade my kids for $100 million. I mean, what an idiot. What an idiot. Tells his wife, tells his kids, we're going to spend time together because I need to enjoy you guys. I mean, I gotta love you guys. So where does society tell people that they should enjoy their family? You tell me. Mickey Mouse, Disneyland. I mean, you want to have a good experience with your kids? Western society says go to Disneyland, you'll be happy. So he buys into that package, that argument, takes his kids down to Disneyland. He's going to enjoy his kids. I mean, they're worth over $100 million. He's willing to give up his kid for that much money. So they go to Disneyland, and I'll tell you, the first hour is great. The kids are happy, they're going on rides, they're smiling, they're laughing, everything's wonderful. Second hour, not so wonderful. I mean, the brother, that little boy for $100 million, gets candy floss in his sister's hair. She takes a drink, throws it on him. They start fighting. The next hour, they're screaming. They can't wait in the line for so long for the rides. By the time they get them to dinner, I mean, dinner's a disaster. They basically destroy the restaurant at Disneyland. They finally get them home for their bath. I mean, it's a mess. There's water everywhere. Till they get them into bed, it's like World War III. The husband and wife finally flop into bed exhausted. He turns to his wife and says, maybe this wasn't the best idea. I think I've got a lot of phone calls waiting for me at work. I think we should get back to work. What's this man's problem? It's not that he needs a course in wine tasting. He needs a course in love tasting. He needs to appreciate his kids. I mean, he doesn't know what it means to appreciate your kids, to spend time with your kids. He's finally with his children, and then he doesn't know what to do with them. And after a few hours, I mean, he's being driven crazy. He's not a connoisseur. He doesn't know what love is all about. So if you want to learn about love, come to the Jewish people. I mean, come to Judaism. We've had 3,000 years of history to talk about what love is. So the Talmud tells us, if you're going to define love as fourth-class pleasure, love is a feeling or an emotional pleasure you get when you focus on a person's virtues. It's a feeling you get when you focus on a person's virtues. What's that mean? See, without a clear understanding of what love is about, your focus is going to be on what? Raising, you've got kids, right? And if you don't really know what love is about, your focus is going to be on the effort. it is so hard. You've got to clean them, you've got to feed them, you've got to teach them, you've got to dress them, you have patience. I mean, you're going to come to believe it's too taxing. It's just too hard to do, and you're going to say, forget it. But if you're focused on the pleasure, just like in our basketball example, on what these kids can bring you and what the meaning is behind raising kids, you'll want to do it. And so, the real effort in loving someone is focusing on their virtues. Not finding their virtues, because really, everybody has virtues. I mean, people are a mixed bag. We have good traits and negative traits. Everybody has virtues, and when you first meet somebody, sometimes that's all you see are their virtues. It takes a long time until you see their other qualities. The question isn't to see their virtues, but to focus on their virtues during the hard times. And that's where the effort is. You have to put in a lot of effort to continue after that honeymoon period is gone. You have to work hard sometimes to focus on their virtues.
Yossi, what is a virtue? What is a virtue?
A virtue is a quality that's specifically unique to that person, that you see in them, a potential or a trait.
That you value?
That you as a person can identify with really strongly. So strongly that you're able to focus on it. So let me give you an example that this is the key to loving, is the ability to focus on a person's virtues and keep that focus throughout the hard times. Ask an expectant mother and father. They're about to have a kid, right? She's pregnant. She's going to have a child. And ask them the following question. Tell me, are you about to love the child that you're going to give birth to? What's their answer?
Yeah.
Of course. But then ask them another question. How do you know that your child's not going to grow up to be a spoiled brat? A terrible child, like the neighbor's kid? What's their answer going to be to you? I don't know what my child's going to be growing up to be like, but no matter what, I'm still going to love them. Even if they turn out to be like the neighbor's kids, I'll still love my child because I'm committed to loving my child no matter what they turn out with. Why is that? Because this idea of focusing on a person's virtues is hardwired into our system. It's part of our hardware between parent to child. God created us in such a way that we will love our child pretty much in spite of anything they do. I mean, they can mess up the floor, throw meatballs at each other, tear up the VCR, whatever. You're still going to love your child even if you're mad at them. It's innate. We don't have to work that hard for that love. But it's a different matter for spouses. Spouses where you have to put in that opportunity, that effort. Let me ask you a question. Where would you expect, listen to the question, where would you expect relationships to be stronger and to last longer? Between spouses, husbands and wives, or between parents and children? Where would you expect relationships to be stronger?
Parents and children.
Where would you expect? Why between spouses? Because you choose your spouse. I mean, hopefully you haven't met your spouse at a bar while you were inebriated and drunk and you have this night of passion, let's get married and continue this forever. Hopefully you've met your spouse over something that was more rational, logical. I mean, you talked to them, you found out if you had things in common, traits that would work out. You've made a rational decision. If you've made a rational decision, hopefully that's what's going to work out. I mean, your kid is your kid. You get what you get. You work on them, but a lot of it is you get what you get. And yet we know in reality, no one divorces their kids, but a lot of people, half of people, divorce their spouses. Again, why is that? Because this thing about focusing on the virtues of a spouse is difficult. It takes a lot of energy and a lot of effort. And it takes so much effort that a lot of people are willing to give it up and say, next, because you see their virtues right away. So,
Circle back to this virtue question. I think focusing on a virtue, like if I believe that, I can be happy for the rest of my life with a guy who has blue shoes, like a whole wardrobe of blue shoes. I'm going to focus on his blue shoes, and I'm going to be thankful for his blue shoes. Truthfully, I don't think that's going to deliver on intimacy or a successful relationship. Like if my conception is that's what delivers on a, I believe that that's a virtue worth marrying for and focusing on, I think I would be kidding. I would find out later in life, that's not going to deliver that's why my question was, virtue, I don't believe is a subjective thing. Like, I believe that there are a couple of things that will deliver on intimacy. And it's not, Yossi thinks that it's, somebody who is kind and loving and committed to God, and Lorna thinks it's blue shoes and, a full head of hair, or whatever it is, or just something, that can't deliver on that. So I'm wondering if there's, something in the Torah that gives more definition around what virtue is, of virtues that will work.
So I actually appreciate so much what you've done, because you've given me a perfect segue into the next part of what love is. So that's perfect, Lauren, and we didn't rehearse this prior to it. Getting a little deeper in terms of love and what it's about, and this idea of virtues and focusing. What is the word love in Hebrew? The word love in Hebrew? Ahava. Ahava. In English, you get words, but there's often no real root to words. I mean, what's the root of love in Hebrew? In English, the word love, the root is av. I mean, what's that mean? But in Hebrew, it's very different, because every root of every word has a very deep meaning to it. And the word love, ahava, in Hebrew, what's the root of ahava? Hav. Actually, I think that's where they got it from in English, of love. The word love, ahava, the root word is hav, and hav means to give. In essence, the root of loving is giving. You want to learn to love? Give. Loving comes through giving. Part of the giving is focusing on their virtues and their values. But the real essence is in giving so much that you want to fulfill their potential. When you meet a person in secular world, in secular society, and you're trying to find out if this is the person you want to spend the rest of your life with, what you're really looking at is, what you're really asking yourself is, what am I getting from this person? And you've got a list. Are they good looking enough for me to keep me interested? Do they make enough of a living to keep me comfortable? Are they witty enough? Do they keep me laughing? Are they bright enough, intellectual enough? Basically, it's a me. What am I getting from this person? What can I take? What can I get? Am I getting enough from this person? That's your focus. And the minute they stop delivering, the minute those flowers don't come on Friday night, the minute those dinners aren't made, you're off to the next person, because they're no longer delivering what you want. Judaism turns it around and says the following. You want to know if this is a person you should marry? You want to know if this is a person you want to spend the rest of your life with? When you look at them, look into their eyes and see inside their soul, and find out if in that soul is a person that you cherish enough and value enough that you want to spend the rest of your life not taking, but giving to them. Do you see enough of a person that you identify with, qualities that you cherish, that you want to make this person to be the best possible human being they can ever be? Do you want to help them achieve their dream because you identify with them so closely? If you want to be part of their dream, you want to become part of that person, and the two of you become one. And if they're focusing on the same thing, they're looking at you and saying, is this a person I want to give to the rest of my life? It doesn't matter what you're going to end up looking like. It doesn't matter whether you keep your job or lose your job. They are focused on making you the best possible human being you can ever be. That's marriage. And that's love. You see it with your children. I mean, you want your children to be happy. You want them to succeed. You want to find out what qualities they have. And you want to take those qualities and make sure they maximize those potentials in life. It's the same with your spouse. And if you're giving to your spouse and your spouse is giving to you, you'll be in it for the long run. So that's love in Judaism. Remember we said there's a counterfeit? There's a counterfeit in every pleasure, in every level, right? What's the counterfeit to love? It's not love, but
Lust.
There's another idea in Judaism, another ideology out there for love, quote unquote. It happens the following way. Two attractive people are walking late at night on a sandy beach. The moon is out. The shining in her golden hair. He's so handsome. There's a soft breeze blowing in the air, fragrance of the spring flowers. He looks at her, she turns to him, and then all of a sudden, bang, Cupid has struck him with an arrow. They've fallen in love. They've fallen in love. That's the Greek ideology for love, and it's one we've adopted. People fall in love because they're so infatuated. That's lust. That's not love. That's infatuation. Because what happens a little later is they get married, and now they have kids, and they have a very heavy mortgage on their beautiful house that they bought, and he's been spending many nights and many weekends at the office working late. And he's been spending those nights at the office with his secretary. And night after night after night, they're doing budgets and spreadsheets, but one night, she looks at him, he turns to her, and bang, who comes along? Cupid. Strikes them both with an arrow. He's now in love with his secretary. In comes his secretary, out goes his wife. That's infatuation. Judaism teaches us the difference between infatuation and love. If you ever catch yourself saying this person is perfect, be careful. No one's perfect. You're infatuated. You're not seeing clearly. You're seeing what you want to see, your projection. If you say this person is perfect for me, in other words, we've got some synergy, they're perfect for me, then you've got something. So that's the difference. So be careful, because real love takes a lot of work. Love grows. It's not something that's instant. I mean, listen to the term society tells us, fallen in love. I don't know about you, but I want to be standing. I don't want to be on the ground when I'm in love. Or madly in love. I mean, I don't want to be insane. I want to be sane and clear-headed, or blinded by the love. These are the terminologies. I mean, I want to see who I'm marrying. I don't want to be blinded by love. But in a society that values instant gratification and finances, and this kind of thing is what it feeds into, not Judaism. Don't be blinded, don't be mad, and don't be falling on the ground. Be aware of who the person is, because it's a person you're going to be with for the rest of your life. Okay, that's fourth class pleasure, love. Enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of good. And what's third class pleasure? I mean, we know third class pleasure is going to be on a qualitatively different level. Fourth class pleasure is love. It's not third class pleasure. Because as great as love is, and love is great. I mean, they write love songs about it, you buy flowers, whatever. Love is wonderful. But as wonderful as love is, I mean, if your husband or wife is following you around the office all day, focusing on your virtues, your whole life, I mean, you're going to get a little worried. I mean, you're going to say, don't you have something better to do with your time than follow me around and focus on my virtues? There's something else. There's more to life than love, even though love is great. For a lot of people, that's it. That's all they ever get to is fifth and fourth. What's the third class pleasure?
Self-awareness.
We're the ringers here.
Self-acceptance and
Self-awareness.
Self-awareness. What's the criteria when you decide what the next level of pleasure is? What's the criteria?
Trade it for a thing.
No exchange rate. What are you willing to give up in material pleasures? In terms of you're willing to give up your home and your money. What are you willing to give up in love, affection, and love of yourself? Ultimately, your own life. I mean, you love yourself so much. What are you willing to give up in terms of your own life for? What's the third level of pleasure?
Ideals. Idealism.
Anyone else?
Spirituality.
She said third class pleasure.
Why are you saying you'd be willing to give up your life? I didn't think that was part of the fourth level.
A criteria is to get to the next level is you're willing to give something up. That's how you
Right.
determine. So you'd be willing to give up fifth class, you're willing to give up your money, finances for love. To get to the third class, what would you be willing to give up in love and in money? You don't necessarily have to give up your life, but if it came down to it, you'd be willing to give it up. Very close. Hinda? Very close. Idealism?
Morals, values.
What would you be willing to give it all up for? Close to idealism, but pull it out a little more.
Would it be
very close. Freedom from what? Give me an example of
Freedom from oppression.
World War II, right?
Right.
What happened in World War II?
Well, a lot of people gave up their lives for what they believed in.
For a cause.
Yeah.
A cause. Something meaningful. People in World War II were willing to give their lives because they didn't see the world to be taken over by Nazis and overrun by oppression. And at that point in time, the person said, goodbye to my house, goodbye to my wife and my kids. And I'm going to go on the front lines. I might not come back again, but I can't live in a world where Nazis might rule one day. Today we see it as well. People willing to give up their lives for a cause, for something they believe in with everything. So in Judaism we say the third level of pleasure is a cause. Picture this example. And you know, when I started doing this lecture, well, I gave this lecture many times throughout the years. And this lecture preceded my giving it many times before. This example for a lot of people can never hit home. And tragically, now it does. Imagine the following. You're in a plane or on a boat, and hijackers come to you. They hijack this plane and boat, and they said to you, I want you to kill these 300 innocent passengers on this boat, or else we'll kill you and your family. And here's the knife. Could you do it? Even if you thought you could, I mean, kill one person, two, I mean, you couldn't live with yourself. You just can't do it. Why couldn't you do that? Why couldn't you kill these people at the cost of your own life? Why? Because it's
wrong.
It's wrong. Donna, you're a nice person. You're very sweet. You're wonderful. Haven't you done something wrong in your life before? One wrong thing, two wrong things. What's another wrong thing?
That's a big one.
It's a big one.
I feel like that's like cheating on a test or something.
Exactly. It's too wrong. It's not worth something. What's it not worth? It's not worth going against what's right. And really, if you distill it, it's not worth going against being good. The pleasure in the third class is to be good. It's to do what's right through a cause, something new. Realize what you're saying. You're saying you're willing to give up everything you've got in the material life. Everything you've gotten. You're willing to give up your family, your own life, if it means doing what's good and what's the right thing. And if that pleasure is so heavy that it's the third level, then you should really learn how to enjoy it. There's a very famous line in Judaism, and the line is the following. If you don't know what you're willing to die for, you haven't begun to live. If you don't know what you're willing to die for, you haven't begun to live. Figure out what you're willing to die for and live for it. You know, in 1973 war, Israel was attacked. The Egyptian army and others were attacking Israel. There was a point in time it didn't look like Israel was going to make it. They were on the ropes. It didn't look very well. And embassies and consulates throughout the world reported the following thing. They had a rush of people coming to their consulates, applying to fight in the army, the Israeli army. And as they were taking their names, they said, I'm Bob Smith, Mr. Christensen, O'Leary, O'Brien. And the person taking their names down for the army said, wait a minute, are you Jewish? And they say, yeah, never mind that, I'm Jewish. Just sign me up so I can fight in the army. And the person at the embassy would say, well, how'd you get this name if you're Jewish? And they said, I took that name because I didn't want to identify with the Jewish people. But when it came to Israel almost being destroyed, that's when they were willing to fight for them. See, they were willing to put their lives on the line when it looked like Israel wasn't going to exist. Figure out, spend some time, figure out on a piece of paper, what are the causes that you would be willing personally to put it on the line for? What would you really be willing to sacrifice your life for if it came down to it? and then realize chances are you don't have to die for it, and live for it today. I mean, don't say, well, I'm willing to die for it, but not live for it. I mean, that's crazy. It's insane. If you're willing to die for it, live for it. I mean, if the Jewish people or Judaism is your cause, live for them. Whatever is your cause, saving the whales, whatever is important to you, what you'd be willing to risk your life for it, live for it. In that way, you've got something meaningful in life that when you look back upon in retrospect what you've done with your life, you've got something there. Fourth class is wonderful, fifth class, but if you haven't achieved something that's meaningful, if you haven't done something, it's got that meaning in there. You never really made it. The problem with being good, what is the problem with being good? It is such a heavy toll, it's such a heavy burden that you don't enjoy it at the moment. You enjoy it in retrospect. That is to say, at the end of the day, at the end of the week, sometimes at the end of a lifetime is when you enjoy it, but not at that moment because it took so much effort and energy. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're on, this time an excursion boat, a vacation boat. You're on vacation. I mean, you've taken vacations before in your life. You've gone to different parts of the world. You've been in different places, taken a few vacations. I ask you, what's been the most memorable? Well, pretty much similar. One of your trips that you take is to New York. You want to see the Statue of Liberty. And you take a boat on the East River, okay? And you're on the East River, and you're traveling, and you're going around, and somebody falls off the boat. You look around, no one's diving in. I guess no one knows how to save a person's life. And you decide you need to jump in and save this guy before he drowns in the East River. Do any of you know what's in the East River? Everything that New York finds repulsive finds its way in the East River. I mean, nothing lives or exists in the East River. The slime, the stench will kill you. I mean, it's radioactive. Nothing's alive in the East River. But I mean, you're not focused on that right now. You've got to save the guy's life, right? So you jump in the water, it's the East River, it doesn't matter. And the guy grabs you, and he takes you down. And you remember your first aid course, and you realize, let him take you down until he panics, he lets go. This time you come around from behind him, you grab him, you swim up, you get him to the keel of the boat, other passengers there help you, you put him on board, mouth to mouth, you've saved his life. You've ruined your Armani suit, but you've saved his life. You get back to your hotel. 10 hot baths later. 15 hot showers later. You swear to yourself, if there's any place you will never ever go on vacation, if there's any place you will never ever visit again, it's New York. And it's the worst experience you've ever had. Fine. It's 30 years later and you're a grandparent. You're a grandparent, 30 years later. You're sitting at home and your grandson jumps on your lap and looks through your photo album of vacations. And he's looking through and he sees the Eiffel Tower. He sees the beautiful buildings in Melbourne in Australia. He sees the Great Wall of China. He sees places in New Delhi. And he says, Grandpa, Grandma, tell me, of all the places you've been and all the places you've seen, all the places you've visited in your life, tell me, Grandpa, what was the most memorable? What was the most important place that stands out in your mind after all these years? What are you going to say to your grandchild? Is that one time in New York when I saved this guy's life who fell off a boat? Think about it. All these extravagant places where you're so comfortable and so happy to see all these things pales by comparison what is that one time where you saved the guy's life. In fact, you'll show pictures to your grandson about how this guy had kids and a family and he moved on. I mean, it's your investment. You're going to want to know what happened to this guy because you invested so much effort. You risked your life for this guy. But at the time, you were so busy in terms of risking your life, you didn't realize how important it was. 30 years later, it stands out in your life more than any other place or trip you've ever taken. So, it's in retrospect that we experience the third level of pleasure. Okay. It's an amazing thing. I mean, we don't really recognize our own pleasure till we look back. That's why, by the way, in Judaism, at every night when we go to sleep, we're supposed to remember what we did. At the end of the week on Thursday nights, we're supposed to recap our week. At at the end of the month on Rosh Chodesh, and at the end of the year on Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, we're supposed to look back. What did you do? What have you done? What have you accomplished? That's a way of training yourself to get into this idea of meaning and pleasure. Speaking about pleasure, Marlene, I just want to ask you, my hands are almost numb. Is the door closed or open? It is closed. Okay.
It feels open.
As Canadian as I am, I guess I can't take the frigid air of San Francisco. Acclimate to this place. What is the counterfeit? Remember, there's a counterfeit. What's the counterfeit to being good?
Being self-righteous.
Close, Donna?
Being evil. Evil for a cause.
No. What is the counterfeit to being good? Think it through.
Being self-serving for a good reason.
Getting it?
Yeah, I don't have the words.
Being controlling.
No, but I like that answer a lot. It's a very good answer. It's not what I was looking for. It's very good.
Being indifferent.
The rabbis teach us the counterfeit to being good is, say that louder,
Acting good?
looking good. Looking as if you are good. Because if you don't know what it means to be a good person, what are you going to do? You're going to accept what secular society tells you means to be a good person. And of course in society, being a good person means to look like you're a good person. What's that mean really?
Phony belonging.
What does it mean to look good? What is the most prevalent counterfeit coin of looking good that the society tells you about? The most prevalent counterfeit form of looking good? Being a, you tell me? Being a success. Think of it. You can be such a good person. You can be an amazing spouse. You can be a great parent. You can be a wonderful friend, a loyal listener to people. You can be someone who volunteers, who helps out in charities. You can be thoughtful. You can be understanding. You can be forgiving. But if you haven't really made it financially, you haven't done well as a financial success, there's something wrong with you. You need a psychiatrist. I mean, you never really made it, right? Even though everyone knows in the bottom of their hearts, you can be a very, very, very successful business person and not be so nice. Be actually pretty muddy. Success isn't based on what your income is. Success needs to be based on who you are as a person. But if you don't know what it means to be good, you're going to accept a counterfeit because you're going to want to look good. And you see it so prevalent in the society. How does a human being in the society identify themselves? Exactly. Hi, I'm John, and I'm a doctor. Hi, I'm Bob, and I'm a lawyer. Hi, I'm this, and I'm a that. You identify yourself with a career. Why? Because if they're impressed enough with the fact that you're a doctor, you'll feel good about yourself. And that's what you want to do, is feel good. Torah teaches and Judaism confirms that what you really need is self-respect and self-esteem. And that doesn't come by someone else being impressed with you. That comes by doing what's right and doing the good thing that you really know. So don't get taken by what society tells you. Do the right thing. Don't accept what their version is. Self-respect, that's an energy we need. Without self-respect, we die as people. But get it the right way, not the wrong way. Okay, so we all need meaning in life. You can have a lot of fifth-class pleasure, you can have a lot of fourth-class pleasure, but if you don't have meaning, you're going to ask, what is it all about? What is it added up to? There's a beautiful example of this. It's a real story. There's this guy who's a Swiss businessman. This guy's name is Alfred Nobel. And he lived in the 1800s. He did very well in Switzerland. Very bright guy, Alfred. His brother died tragically. And he was very upset. We had a funeral, of course. At the end of the funeral, he came home very distraught. I mean, his brother died. Imagine your brother dying. And he's reading the obituary in the newspaper. And as he's reading the obituary, to see what they said about his beautiful brother, his wonderful brother, the obituary was about him. The editor of the paper had made a mistake and thought it was Alfred who died, not his brother. Imagine reading your own obituary in a newspaper. And imagine what you would see there in the obituary. Do you know what he saw? Through the tears of crying for his brother? Alfred Nobel, an amazingly successful businessman. So good, so accomplished. He invented dynamite. And with this invention of dynamite, not only has it opened doors in terms of mining and making money for so many countries, but it also helped countries politically in terms of winning wars. Even though it led to the death of untold thousands of people, we can't wait for dynamite to be developed further. Politically, he's helped in the strengthening of countries through this invention of dynamite. Yes, Alfred Nobel, a wonderful person, will be long remembered for his invention of dynamite. Well, he broke down crying. That's what he was remembered for. He was remembered for being a good person because he made money. He was remembered for being a good person because he invented dynamite that ultimately killed so many people. That's what got him. He realized he was still alive, and he saw it's time to change things. He took all his money that he had, and he said, I'm no longer going to destroy this world. I am not good. This is not what it's about. And he took his money, and he established this fund, this committee, where people, when they contribute and achieve something really important in life, where their potential is maximized, would get money as an incentive. And today you have the Nobel Prize. It's never too late. You think back upon what you can do in your life and how you can make your life meaningful. Even if it's been destructive and not so productive, he can do it, you can do it. Just imagine what your own obituary column would be or what you've achieved. If you don't like it, change it. There'll come a time in life, it comes in everyone's time, where you'll have a question, so what? What has it really all been about? So I did well in my business. So I had a spouse. So I had kids. So I had a family. So I had friends. So what? What have I done in my 70, 80, 90 years? What have I really done? If you concentrate on meaning and purpose, you'll have an answer when that question comes. Okay, second level of pleasure. What is the second level of pleasure? Second level. It's getting higher, it's getting harder. Second level of pleasure.
Would it be having a purpose?
I think that's more with the third.
Yeah.
What does God tell us? Second level of pleasure is. That's what life's about. Where these levels.
Procreating,
Hmm?
procreating,
Procreating,
lineage, family.
lineage, carrying on lineage,
Service to others.
service to others.
You said it's what life's about. I would say having fun. That's
I mean, what's life about in terms of pleasure in general, in terms of following the pathway to reach. Love is fourth. Second level of pleasure.
Friendship and connectivity among people?
No, you were very close to what you said prior, actually, and that's why I said that's a wonderful answer. Open the Torah, the Bible, this instruction manual that we talked about. Read it. In Hebrew. What's it in Hebrew? Bereshit. Can you read it? What is it? Bereshit. In the beginning. Bereshit. It's the second word in this Bible, in this instruction manual. Bara. Bereshit bara. In the beginning, God created. Second level pleasure, creativity. God creates from nothing. He creates a universe upon which to bestow pleasure, joy. That's huge. By the way, only God can create ex nihilo. Ex nihilo, from nothing, something. From nothing, He created the universe. We create, it's called vayatzer. We don't do something called bara. Vayatzer. That means to create from something that already exists. We create too. Being like God is the highest form of getting close to God. Creativity. Creativity. What's creativity? Can I tell you what creativity is? It's taking an inert material, steel, aluminum, forming it and fashioning it into a 747 so that people can be transported around the world. Creativity is taking pain and sorrow that you've got in your heart and transferring it through a paintbrush onto a blank canvas as a painting so people can relate and be inspired. That's creativity. Creativity, taking what's in your mind and turning it into a beautiful piece of music. Creativity, procreation that you mentioned, is definitely giving birth. I mean, we're almost godlike. We can give life, we create. But it's more than just that act. It's taking that child and making them realize their potential, working so hard and finding the most creative ways for them to discover who they are, making them happy people, proud people. That's creativity. What's the highest level of creativity? There's different forms of creativity. What's the highest level of creativity?
Imagination.
No, that's creativity in general. The highest level of creativity, I think, is so beautiful. It's taking this. We're mammals. We're no different than chimpanzees or apes or any animal. We're animals. It's taking this physical body that we've been given and turning it into a reflection of our soul. So that your body and your soul act as one. There's no disparity. Not that your body wants something and your soul wants another and you're caught in the middle feeling upset. But that beauty inside of you, that soul, is transmitted through your body. A Mother Teresa who takes her frail, incapacitated body and uses it to help starving people, to create a vision of the world that's in her soul, that's creativity. To turn this into a vessel, into a vehicle that's going to transmit what's meaningful, what's valuable, what's important to you into this world, that's the ultimate form of creativity. It's very hard to do. Very hard to do. How do you know creativity is qualitatively a much higher level of pleasure than the second level of pleasure? Than the third level of pleasure? What position would you rather have in an army, let's say, or at work? In an army, would you rather be a general or would you rather be the soldiers? You'd rather be the general. At work, would you rather be a boss or a worker underneath? You'd rather be the boss. Why? Because being a general, being a boss, whatever, you realize you have the creative ability to shape, to mold, to change, to affect, to impact. That's exciting. Even though we all realize that an army without soldiers, a corporation without workers, is not going to last very long. But if you've got that ability to mold and to switch and to change, that's creativity. And that's what you want to be. What is the price? Remember, we said there's a price for every pleasure. What is the price we pay for creativity?
Poverty.
Poverty.
Ambiguity.
Ambiguity.
Nobody's telling you what to do.
Now the price you pay, what's the effort involved in creativity? It's what you're all doing right now. It's what Thomas Jefferson said, a person will avoid doing at any cost because it is so difficult. Thinking. Thought. The price for creativity is thought. It is so hard to think. It's so hard to blot out thoughts that are distractions and focus on getting that creative channel. Thought takes so much energy, so much effort, but that's the price you need to pay to be creative. Real creativity means having control, right? Having control over your arm, if you're painting something, over your voice, if you're transmitting a message. Real creativity takes control. What is the counterfeit to creativity? What is the counterfeit to creativity?
Imitation.
Non-imitation, no plagiarism.
Just uninspired, like it's not the best we can do.
What does creativity do? Gives people
Something.
inspiration, pleasure. What's the counter?
Doing it for money.
No. Again,
Gives you a change.
you're getting that as well. It's a counterfeit to creativity.
accepting the status quo, not needing to.
That's just being almost in limbo, but we're talking the antithesis, really. What does creativity require in order to be achieved? It requires thought and effort and a large amount of control. The counterfeit to creativity is control. Not to give people pleasure, but to destroy. Pol Pot, Idi Amin, Stalin, Hitler. They thought they were creating, right? The new right, creating the new right, creating a new communist era, Stalin. What they were doing is destroying. You've heard of power corrupts, absolute power corrupts, absolutely. As you get higher in these levels, the impact on the world is going to be much higher. So if you're doing the counterfeit of creativity, you're going to destroy it. Real creativity gives people pleasure. The counterfeit is destruction. They thought they were creating, but what they were doing is they were controlling minds. They were controlling people. They were controlling philosophies. And they were destroying. That's the counterfeit. And that's where you'll get people willing to sacrifice not 500 people in a vote, but 50 million people worldwide, because it's such a much higher level. So, we're told in Judaism that God created the world to give us pleasure. We're here to get pleasure. You want to be like God, ultimately. And to be like God, you give other people pleasure. Use your creativity to inspire and to move people. You're being godlike. And that's a very high level to be in. Okay, here we are. First level. Can't believe we made it. So think of it. First class pleasure. What is it really about? First class pleasure. You've made your money, you've made your wealth, you've got your yacht, your home, your vacations, you've got your Porsche, you've got whatever is important to you in fifth class. You have a family. You have love of a spouse, love of kids, if not love of friends. I mean, you've got fourth class wrapped up, you've done it well. You've got meaning in your life. Third class pleasure. And furthermore, you've used your power to create a lot of good in this world. And you can still have a moment in your life where you look back and say, I still don't have it. There's still something missing here. There's something I just haven't touched, gotten. Before I die, there is something more out there.
Faith.
Faith? Okay.
Spirituality.
Spirituality. First class of pleasure. The first level. The ultimate goal. It's connection to God. Touching God. Think of it. What could be more valuable to you, except if I told you that right here in this room back here is God Himself, waiting to speak to you personally, one-on-one. Connect to God, become part, find out everything you've wanted to know. A lot of people climb mountains, look for nirvana in different places. They want to transcend. They want to experience God somewhere. The ultimate is experiencing God. If you think of it, why is that? Because deep down, whether we want to admit it or not, we're finite. You're going to die. You are not going to continue. Everything you've done, it's finite. It's not forever. There's only one thing that lasts forever. It's God. God is infinite. An infinite being lasts forever. You want to attach your finite, your part, your finite into the infinite, and you will last forever. Ultimately, if your soul, that one part of you is infinite, if your soul came from God, that spark, that beautiful spark came from God, your soul, you want to reconnect that spark back to its source. You want to reconnect back to God. That's the ultimate, to transcend. You've had that experience on occasion, perhaps. You've walked out under the stars. You spent enough time under the stars to get rid of all those distractions, and you focused on it, and you look up in the sky and you see the heavens filled with stars, more stars than you've had days or years in your life, and you realize you are so insignificant, and you get this sense of awe. What is it about? And you want to connect with this being. Just, it's like this little crack in the door that opens for a split second, and you just feel that, and it's gone. Can you imagine living with that reality every day of your life? You see a baby being born, a child giving birth. I mean, you get this sense of perspective. Oh, that's what connecting with God is. That's the ultimate. And what is the ultimate price you have to pay for that? The hardest thing in life. So hard. You want to connect with God, you have to pay a very high price. What's that price? Gratitude. Be grateful. You have to be able to say in the morning, thank you, God, for waking me up. I appreciate being alive. Thank you, God, I can eat some food, a fruit. Thank you for whatever I've got, because it wasn't me. I did what I could, but I didn't create this place. You did. That's why in Judaism, it is such a basic thing we teach people. Before you eat something, before you eat an apple, an orange, you say, Baruch atah Hashem Eloheinu melech borei pri ha'etz. Thank you, God, for providing me this fruit of the vine. Gratitude. Thank you. That is so important. So important. When I bring my child a gift from Toys R Us or something like that, I wanted to say, Dad, thank you very much. Why? Because I'm going to give him the toy anyways, even if he doesn't say thank you. But if he has the sense of gratitude and appreciation, chances are, whatever comes his way in life, he's going to be appreciative and grateful for it. He's going to get it anyways. But if you have a sense of gratitude, you start connecting to your source. The key to happiness is focusing on what you have and being grateful for it. The key to misery, the rabbis teach us, is focusing on what you don't have. Gratitude is the key. Pretty much, most of us have everything we'll ever need in our lives. And if we're still unhappy, we'll be unhappy with whatever comes our way. You have to be grateful. And to be grateful is the highest price, because you have to do what? You have to negate your what is the counterfeit? What's the counterfeit? Say that again a little louder.
Ego.
Ego. Not that God did it all. I am the center of the universe. It's about me. I created it all, and I worship myself. And that's why what's the very, very first commandment in the Torah, in the Bible? First commandment is? I am the Lord your God. You are the God before me. Not idol gods. You. You're not the center of the universe. That is very hard. Very hard. But that's the ultimate, is to be able to transcend your ego, be grateful and appreciative for what you've had, connecting with God. Your life will have been worthwhile. These 5 levels of pleasure, they're almost like stages in a rocket ship. You know, a rocket ship that takes off has 5 stages as well. What's the first stage in a rocket ship? Going to the moon.
Take off.
Take off, lift off, right? Lift off. That's the lowest stage. But if the 4th stage doesn't ignite, what happens to the rocket if you don't have a 4th stage that ignites?
Doesn't keep going up.
Falls back down to Earth. The 4th stage ignites, it's traveling 100 miles a second, right? You're into orbit. 3rd stage, you're in orbit, but it's still not directed anywhere. You need somewhere to go with it. And that's the 2nd stage, right? You've got a destination. Your first stage, you finally get there to the moon or wherever you're going. Same way with the 5 levels of pleasure. What's the 5th level of pleasure? Physical. That's energy. That's takeoff. That's, I made my money. I did my thing. That's that physical energy. 5th class, 5th stage of a rocket. But if you don't get married, or if you don't have friends, if you don't have love of somebody, I mean, if you've never connected to one person your whole life, you plump. What good is all that wealth if you've never had one relationship in your life? 4th level, you need that. You need some sort of love and emotions. You need human contact. So if you have love, you're traveling. That's great. But if you don't have self-respect, meaning, you'll never make it anywhere. You need meaning. That gives you the power to get to your destination. And your destination is ultimately where? 1 first-class pleasure connecting with God. We said in the beginning, God created us to have pleasure, to experience this world so we can get the most out of it. That's what we're here to do. And these are the levels and the way to get them. Let me ask you something. If you thought these 5 levels of pleasure were what it's about, that these 5 levels of pleasure were really what is at the crux, not just of Judaism, but of your life, of what your life is meant to be, what you're searching for, what you're spending your day and your weeks and your months and your whole life for. Tell me something. Would it not be one of the most prominent things in Judaism? It's 5 levels of pleasure. Would it not be so pronounced it would be everywhere? Would you not put it everywhere you go? Would you not ensure that everyone knows it and it's said all the time? Do you know where these 5 levels of pleasures are? Have you heard? Shema Yisrael, Hashem Eloheinu, Hashem Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, our Lord is one. In the Shema, in that prayer, which is what a person says when they wake up in the morning and when they go to sleep, in that prayer where they say when they go to their final sleep, it's the last thing you say out of your lips when you die, is that Shema. Contained in there is the 5 levels of pleasure. If you read it closely, you shall love your God who loves you. First level of pleasure. Tells you how to love your God. You should love him with your heart, with your passion, with your meaning, with love. With all your material goods. Love God who loves you with everything you have connect to God. It's the most prominent, powerful statement we have in Judaism. If this was so powerful and so meaningful, do you think it would be affixed in terms of like posters everywhere we go so we remember where we're going to? We call those mezuzahs. Mezuzah is not a ritual object that's just there. Inside the mezuzah, on that doorpost, is a scroll. That scroll is the 5 levels of pleasure. Remember where you're going to. Remember where you've come back from. Remember what you're living for. If you thought these 5 pleasures of the 5 levels of pleasure were so crucial, do you think somewhere we'd be told to get them into our head, into our brain maybe? Maybe bind them around our arms? It's called tefillin. That's what's in the tefillin. Put it on your head so you know you remember what you're talking about. Put it on your arms so your actions are about getting these 5 levels of pleasure. It's what Jews do every morning. The 5 levels of pleasure. It is so prominent. It is so key. It's about what living is all about. You should teach it to your children. It's right there. Teach it to them morning and night. When you're walking, when you're sleeping. Tell your kids what life is about. Don't let them waste their time because you know sooner or later they're going to ask you what it's about. Teach them now. Teach it to your children. Put it on your doorposts. Put it on your minds. Remember, you are here for pleasure. And pleasure is hard work. But it's good hard work. To be an Olympic athlete, to be a champion Olympic athlete, that's hard work. But it's good, clean work. You want to be an Olympic runner and get a gold medal? Run. Run. It's wonderful work. Run, breathe, sweat. It's great work. Because you're using every muscle of your body to use everything that God gave you to be a champion human being. That's pleasure. And that's what life is about. Because what is the opposite of pain? Not pleasure. Comfort. And you weren't born to be comfortable. You were born to get pleasure. First-class pleasure. And it's hard work. But God wouldn't want anything less than that for you. And you, deep in your hearts, you wouldn't want anything less than that for your own children. And ultimately, you're all God's children. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Any questions or any, as we defrost and enjoy the, boy, I wish they had the heater here a little higher. Any questions on these 5 levels? Any thoughts?
I
just had a quick question. The fourth level, love, that's just not confined to just sharing with another person. It's like in all forms, right?
Right, in all forms, in all forms.
Got it.
If you've enjoyed this lecture, if it's been meaningful to you and you think in there you see yourself in a lot of things, I encourage you, it's on tape. In front of you is a flyer. It's called, thank you. It's called Torah Tapes. It's just one tape of 2,000. You're more than welcome to call them. This is an old caliber. You can call them. The number is 1-800-VOICES-3. And you can ask them, send me the tape on the 5 levels of pleasure. There's another tape that goes hand in hand. It's called Free Will. But what it means to really be free. And it's sort of a sister talk to this. It's the next stage in the 5 levels of pleasure. But feel free to avail yourself. Take this home with you if you want any tapes or you want to hear this again on tape. And if there's any books related to this, I have a small list of books as well. So feel free to expand on it. Any other? Okay, well, we're continuing with our Jewish education program classes. I know this is going to sit for you for a while. You're going to have to digest it. We've got Kabbalah going on in other programs. I just welcome you to make this part of your Jewish education and to join us here. I promise you next time we're going to have the heat up. It'll be a lot warmer in here. I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can tell. One of their main, too much. Jerusalem, 5 levels, like this version. We're like in yeshiva, but I've been taking the 5 levels. Like that. Basic training. Oh, good. Yeah. Oh yeah, you saw it on your own page. When you call them, they'll send it to you. It's not on this one. I didn't put it on the whole thing. But just say, just say, can you mail me the final? Yeah, get it, same time.
And they were at Bodie Burger's thing at Beth as well.
Yeah, you're gonna have to.
We can buy in and out. virtue? Like,
That's the value I see.
yeah, and a full head of hair. I mean, what is there in life other than that? What do you need a man for? Where are you finding that?
Before we get into anything else.
Well, he agrees it elsewhere. There's another one too. Yeah, so Zarkin.
Learning particularly. Why people
Yes.
whatever it is.
Have you ever seen Rabbi Zimmerman?
He's the guy who was telling you the advisor of, the Grateful Dead, or whatever, Santana and.
Oh, yeah. No, see it another time, another Thursday. Back now.
We all do.
What happened?
There's a list.
The other day, for my recipe book, my grandmother wrote me all the recipes.
Yeah.
So I was thinking like taking it over and just going, hey.
Have to go through this
Yeah,
together.
they're so good. And
Yeah.
And then is he said it was the turkey ham,
Yeah.
but boy, I don't know, there's just a million things.
We have to go through because some of them will be like similar but different names.
Yeah.
But you can
Well,
recognize
you go
them.
for the ingredients, and all the ingredients are like, a little of this, a little of that, just enough to make this.
My mom has all her
Yeah.
There's very
What's the Francis?
Oh, so good. Oh, that's good.
And then there's the young guy.
So here's the whole bag.
No, she's
Very nice.
No,
literally.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding you.
Build the stove.
Yeah, she could probably get it out.
Put her head even on the.
This was the biggest all I've ever
Like
seen.
my grandmother used to call us every time.
She didn't know how to cook. It was a recipe to make 5 small portions for regulars and
Beyond one.
But when you divide it into the rest, oh, really?
you guys
This is a
can
good one.
work together.
Let's do lower.
What are you gonna take? That's what I do. I
Yeah.
make it, and then I braid them and I keep them in the freezer, and I put one together, and then like next Friday I'll take out the freezer, let it dry, and just stick it in the oven.
Unpacking, getting her furniture over. Real Brazilian.
Oh, really?
California
This have a, this has a FireWire output. I think it does. Cool.
Take care